Come November 1st, you might notice many more men growing mustaches. It's part of a fundraising and education campaign for men's health. The focus is on male-specific cancers and mental health issues. I'm joined by UC San Diego Chief Urologist, Dr. Christopher Kane. Dr. Kane, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Amitha.
So tell me, how many men are affected by prostate cancer?
Well, this year in the United States, we'll have over 200,000 men diagnosed with prostate cancer, and sadly about 30,000 men, 30 to 32,000 men will die from prostate cancer. So those are, intense statistics. When you think about the incidence, about 1 out of 6 American men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. So it's quite remarkable. Think about being at a Charger game or a Padre game. 1 out of 6 men stand up. That's the prevalence of prostate cancer. So it's extremely common. Fortunately, among the men diagnosed, a relatively small proportion are at risk of death from prostate cancer untreated. But it really is about screening, detecting, and then treating those men who are at highest risk.
So let's talk about that. What is the screening process for men?
The screening is a simple blood test called a PSA, prostate-specific antigen test, and usually a digital rectal exam, which is just a part of the physical exam. And there's been a little bit of controversy about PSA testing because PSA stands for prostate-specific antigen. It's actually not cancer-specific, so many men who have elevated PSAs may have elevated PSAs because their prostate's larger, they have an infection or some other reason. So it's not a perfect screening test, and therefore it's been criticized. On the other hand, most men with prostate cancer do have an elevated PSA. So it's what we call a fairly sensitive screening test. So those of us who are PSA screening proponents, and I'm certainly in that camp, believe that it's well worthwhile getting screened, having prostate cancer detected, and then if the prostate cancer is a slow-growing cancer that may not need to be treated, making that decision after detection rather than avoiding screening and detection altogether.
Very quickly, who's at risk for developing prostate cancer?
Well, all men are at risk, and the current American Urologic Association screening guidelines say to start screening at 55, but African American men and men with a positive family history, so a father, brother, uncle with prostate cancer, are at particularly high risk. So they may want to speak to their physician about getting screened even earlier than 55.
Let's talk about testicular cancer. I understand that that particular cancer tends to affect younger men. Why?
Yes. Well, I don't know why. We don't fully understand why, but the average age, there's actually a bimodal distribution. There's 2 different ages where it occurs, in the late teens and then in the 30s. So it really is a disease of younger men. It's actually one of the real success stories in cancer treatment because it's one of the most treatable cancers. Even when men have advanced testicular cancer, they're often still curable because chemotherapy is so effective against testicular cancer. It's also one of the easiest cancers to screen for because it's really just a self-examination that we encourage men to do once they're teenagers and older. And if they're suspicious, they should see their primary care physician and usually get referred to a urologist for an ultrasound and exam. But as Lance Armstrong showed us, that even men who have very high-risk testicular cancer can be successfully treated and long-lived.
Now, despite this talk of cancer, heart disease remains the #1 killer, not just for men, but for women as well, right?
Yes, it is. And the heart disease statistics are intimidating, but it's the #1 cause of death. Now, as we're living older and we're doing a better job successfully treating many cancers, heart disease goes up in incidence. So it's also associated with our increasing obesity, hypertension, family history, cholesterol management. So unfortunately, although our treatments for heart disease are more effective than ever, things like statin medications to lower cholesterol, blood pressure medications to manage that, unfortunately the epidemic of obesity and the decreasing exercise of our American society is putting people at higher risk.
Very quickly, the point of Movember is not just to raise awareness about specific cancers for men, but also mental health issues. Do men tend to ignore the signs of, say, depression?
Yes, I think men and women tend to ignore the signs of depression and just assume their life is busy and they're under stress. And men seem to be particularly reluctant to go in for regular medical examinations. And so I think it's really an important movement to think about screening our mental health for ourselves with a primary care physician, for our family members and those who we love, because many of us are suffering in silence.
Dr. Christopher Kane, thanks for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.